looks like we are live. What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Battle Superfluous. Are you ready for some fun? Where are you joining us from? But most importantly, what are you drinking? Take a good sip now. This gentleman here, that's Gandalf the giraffe. He's going to be watching over all of our battles here. I'm Paul Carganilla. I'm going to be your host for the BS. I'm so excited. This is our first ever Battle Superfluous, kicking off the first tournament. 8 teams will enter. Only one will emerge the victorious as our very first ever Battle Superfluous World Champions. And the blue team won the secret Facebook advantage, and they chose to argue the side of Space Alien. And so the green team will be supporting the side debating that we would learn more about life from a 10-minute conversation with a ghost. Yep, the winning team will move on to our final 4 next month. But for the losing team, this will be the beginning and the end of their tournament. Every battle will be decided by a best-of-3 verdict count. Each battle will be overseen by 2 guest judges, and the third verdict, which is maybe the most important, will be submitted by you, the viewer at home. That's right. There's a 48-hour window after every battle goes live where you can hop onto our Facebook page and cast your vote, either green or blue. Your vote might be the difference between any of these teams moving on or just being shot down. And with that, let's meet our judges for battle number 1. Let's first say hello to our first guest judge. This is Tiffany. What are you drinking?
Well, it's been hot out, so I'm drinking water.
That's a good choice. You have to stay hydrated to keep your mind warm. Now, Tiffany, since this is the first ever battle, I want to explain to the audience that the judges aren't given any sort of requirements, any sort of guidelines on which to base their verdicts. Having said that, is there anything that you are looking for from these 2 teams tonight? Anything in particular?
You know what? I think plain and simple, I'm just looking to be convinced, one way or the other. Looking for, compelling arguments that are supported. And
our second guest judge is Jared. Jared studied film at the Cal State University Northridge. Jared, what are you drinking?
I wanted to keep a level head, so I'm keeping it non-alcoholic. I'm drinking a Arnold Palmer, and it represents my impartiality to the iced tea and the lemonade, just as I will be impartial to the 2 teams here. I mean, I'm looking for creativity. I think that, some creative arguments will go a long way, but I also want there to be logic there to back up those creative arguments.
Introducing our players. Ladies and gentlemen, for the green team, starting off as we call it the boot, is Dan Franklin.
Whoa! I'm ready to rock, Paul.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking scotch, not just scotch. I'm drinking Bunnahabhain 18 because it is pure, it is refined, it is aged and classic like our arguments.
For the green team, our sword is Stephen Young. Stephen, what are you drinking?
My doctor says it's Crystal Light, but I do not believe him.
All right. Very good. That's Stephen. And the hammer for the green team is Jill McCall Wolcott. What are you drinking?
In order to give homage to the spirits in which we will be arguing for, I'm drinking holy water out of my chalice. It was imported from the Vatican, overnighted for this evening.
And now let's meet the blue team, starting with our boot for the blue team. We're going to jump on over, and I'm going to introduce y'all to Dani, Kerry. Dani, thank you for joining us. What are you drinking?
Thank you. Red wine. Delicious. No.
Our sword for the blue team is Max. What's that you're drinking?
I am drinking Gayake brand Yerba Mate Enlightenment Tea, which you will be tonight. You will be enlightened.
Very nice. And our final player for the blue team, his name is Joe Faina. Joe, thank you for joining us. What are you drinking?
Oh, well, first, I was not really aware that we were supposed to be drinking. I don't know why I thought otherwise. So I grabbed the first thing I could find in my kitchen, and that is actually Tito's vodka, handcrafted right here in Austin, Texas, home of the most haunted hotel in America and lots of people who believe in aliens.
Now, that is all the introductions, and we are ready for the very first Battle Superfluous debate. That's right, this debate is, we would learn more about life in a 10-minute conversation with a ghost or an alien.
Well, I would just like to say that as far as backing up facts with lots of logic, I have the luxury in this case of not needing to, because this fact is strictly common knowledge, and it comes to us from comedian Louis C.K. And the fact of the matter is, you're going to cosmically spend the most of your existence dead. You're going to be dead much longer than you're going to be alive. You're going to be alive for this much, you're going to be dead for this much. So I'm going to try to set the mood here. It was a dark and stormy night, much like this one. Owen was a bit like you and me. Typical American. A good guy. And towards the end of his life in his deathbed, when he only had a few minutes left, he had a chance encounter with the Grim Reaper, who said, "Owen, you've been a good man. I'm going to give you 10 minutes, and you get to spend it with an alien. Or you get to spend it with a ghost. And what would you like?" And Owen said, "Well, can I meet them?" And the Grim Reaper said, "Sure." So there they are. And at the end of his life, Owen started contemplating everything that the alien could offer. And he thought about interstellar space travel and quantum physics and quantum mechanics and how species could interrelate. But before he could even ask a single question, the alien himself turned to the ghost and said, "What happens after?" Because even the alien had this question. The one question on everybody's mind. Everybody, universally, is the afterlife. And the only people that know that are the ones that are already there. I'm sure I have more time, but I don't think I need it.
That is your 30-second mark. Would you like to use your last 30 seconds to do anything other than turn the lights on?
I would like to toast our victory. So, there it is.
All right. Well, Dan, although that was very nice and entertaining, I actually have some facts to get to, so I'm going to start talking quickly. So not only will we learn more in a 10-minute conversation with an alien, but the mere existence of an alien would teach us more about life than a ghost ever could. You see, while it would be very cool to talk to a ghost, we can't be sure that the person knows anything more about life than we do. We know for sure that they know what it's like to die, and that's definitely very interesting, but that's not what we're debating right now, is it? So a ghost more than likely knows what it was like to live their life and what it was like for them to die, and now what it is like in the afterlife. And again, hearing about the afterlife would be cool, but there's no guarantee that the ghost would have any insight at all as to how we should live our lives better, or any extra information that mankind hasn't already discovered in the living world. An alien, on the other hand, by definition, and I quote, is a form of life assumed to exist outside the Earth or its atmosphere. This means that the very existence of an alien proves something about all of our lives. It proves we're not alone in the universe. It proves that there are other living things out there that survive in worlds that may or may not be similar to ours. And a conversation with an alien would absolutely bring information to the table that is different about life from what we've already experienced in our lives. And there are actually several theories that claim that ancient civilizations have already learned a lot. It is said that aliens taught the Egyptians about mathematics and that the world is round. This is evidenced by the fact that the Great Pyramids are built in such a way that on the summer solstice, the sun sets right in between the dead center, as looking from the Sphinx, sets in the dead center between two of the pyramids, and on the winter solstice, the sun actually rises on one side of the Sphinx's head and sets on the other side of the Sphinx's head. And this means that the Egyptians would have had to have access to a compass and advanced knowledge of math, and we're running out of time. Oh no! And so this information is hypothesized to come from aliens because the first compass did not appear for thousands of years after that. And the pyramids of Giza are also actually built in the exact formation as the constellation Orion's belt. So these are unexplained. There are other unexplained incredible things, such as the Nazca lines and things, and they're all theories, but the fact that they could have come from aliens is incredible. So to sum up, aliens are awesome and smart, and we would learn way more from them than from a dead person.
Hello, everyone, judges and competitors. I'd like to inform you all that not only am I an expert on aliens, Sourcite Devout Ancient Aliens viewer that goes back to the original 2-hour special before they even developed it into a TV series. I'm more qualified than anyone on their team to speak about ghosts. Why? Well, my nickname at the park I play basketball at is Swayze, as in Patrick Swayze, as in Ghost, because I'm white. 2, my previous dog's name was Casper, as in Casper the Friendly Ghost. Therefore, this clearly makes me the utmost authority on ghosts, and I can say with complete confidence everything that has been said thus far by their boot regarding ghosts is false. I will now move on to outline how and why aliens are the superior choice when needing to learn about life. First, let's look at our cultural mirror, film. As a genre, alien films are far superior to ghost films, with the notable exception being Ghostbusters. And that movie is literally about getting rid of ghosts. Next, let's look at a list of shit ghosts can do. Not much. What can aliens do, you ask? Well, aliens are advanced beings capable of interstellar travel. Ghosts? They get stuck in the house they die in. Ever hear of a ghost that travels? Traveling and seeing the world is an essential part to culturing oneself and learning about life. Not only do aliens travel and explore their own planets, they travel to other people's planets and galaxies. That's how into life they are. And which is why I can say without equivocation, aliens would have more knowledge about life than these agoraphobic fairy tales society calls ghosts. Finally, let me tell you about the most famous alien, and perhaps being, in all the galaxies through all time. He is literally synonymous with wisdom. In fact, his title was Master. No, not Mr. Master. I speak of none other than the elfin luminary, an eldest member of the Jedi Council, Yoda. Was there any alien, ghost, or being ever in the history of literature, entertainment, or the history of history more adept at advising one about life than Yoda? So as Yoda said, always pass on what you have learned. And what you've learned here is that you gain more knowledge about life from a 10-minute conversation with an alien.
Okay, first of all, where do I begin? So much crap has been spilled out of mouths so far. You're assuming that aliens coming down would be intelligent. They could be absolutely idiotic. And you know what happens when you assume about aliens? You make an ass out of yourself because they end up committing genocide and wiping out all of humanity. So you don't want to do that, right? Never assume anything good about aliens, you know. And also, you don't want to. Just because they have interstellar travel does not mean that they're smart aliens. They could be dumb slave aliens, like in District 9 or Alien Nation. They could be that kind of alien. Like they could be just subjected to anyone's will, you know. And if James Caan can be the Type A over Mandy Patinkin in a movie, then, you know, they're not going to be that good to learn things from. Here's the cool things about ghosts, right? They can make you fall in love with people that are long since gone. Like we saw P. Swayze in Ghost. You could literally have sex with someone you dated a long time ago who died. Maybe how many times have you heard from someone you dated? I don't really want to do that because my butt looks big in that position. If you had someone, if they happen to die, if you're lucky enough to have had them die, a medium could have their body be inhabited by that person's spirit, and you could have sex with them again. And maybe they would be willing to do all sorts of crazy stuff that they've learned in the afterlife. That would be fantastic. What's another thing? Oh, haunting, like people just say they're going to haunt you. No, they're not. Like haunting gets old after a while, so they're going to want to visit with you. They're going to sit down and tell you all sorts of cool stuff they've learned about the afterlife. With aliens, you don't even know if they're going to speak your language. Like, and if you're not good at math, which is the universal language, you're shit out of luck. I'm sorry. Ghosts are going to be able to communicate with you. Even if they don't speak your language, if they speak Mandarin or Japanese, they're still going to be able to understand that you're another human being, and there are certain things that you can understand about each other. And what I like most about ghosts is that they're mostly evil at first, and then if a small boy can see them, they're going to be okay.
Well, I gotta pounce on the Yoda thing. I mean, if you're gonna bring up Yoda, before Yoda dies, who does he talk to? Come on, who's he talking to? Obi-Wan, dead ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Who does he get his wisdom from? The ghost. So basically, even the aliens realize that there's something they don't know, and they've got to get more wisdom out of that. And let's see, where else? What, I can't remember any other decent arguments. I'm gonna send it back to Dani Kerry.
All right. Well, okay, that's nice, Dan, and you're right. He does consult Obi-Wan before he dies, but he's dying. You're still going back to the afterlife. This question, this debate, is not about the afterlife. It's about knowing about life as we are living it on this earth. So really talking to a ghost, the only extra information, I'm going to go back to my original point, the only extra information they can give us is about death, what it's like to die and what it's like in the afterlife, or actually purgatory, as ghosts are technically in the afterlife, I guess. But so that's pretty much it. You know, we have to really, everybody that's judging this has to really come back to, we are talking about life. We are asking questions about life, not about the afterlife, not about death, about life.
All right, well, thank you. Let's just get right into it. First, we'll do the quick rebuttals and then a closing statement. First, hat tip to Dani for pointing out the flaws in Dan's argument. Ghosts cannot teach us anything about the afterlife. They are not in the afterlife because they are in purgatory, because they had unfinished business. And we're talking about learning from someone or something that had unfinished business. Sounds like they couldn't finish the tasks in the allotted time and not very responsible. I don't really know what they're going to be able to teach me there. Also, Stephen bringing up in his very first argument a world Holocaust slippery slope argument regarding aliens seems pretty juvenile to me, Stephen. The only ghosts to me, to be honest with you, that matter are the ghosts of Biggie and Tupac, and they teach us things that we don't need to talk to them for. Finally, let's just get into my actual statements here, the thing that I think will lay down the hammer to this entire debate. I was watching Hulu the other day on a borrowed password because it's 2014 and that's how cable works now. And I came across a TV show called Cosmos from America's greatest living scientist / the voice of God himself, Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he pointed out two quick things. One, he believes aliens are a definite possibility. And two, everything that guy's voice says is true, so that's got to be accurate. But most importantly, he pointed out that as space and time speed up, space specifically at the speed of light, time stands still and is fundamentally altered. Therefore, ghosts cannot do things that aliens can. Give us literally more time to chat with them about anything we want to talk about. They can literally change the parameters of the debate. I need no more time.
Okay, first of all, we can only decide what we know to be true based on what we know is true knowledge. Now, granted, we have more interaction with ghosts than we do have aliens. More documentation, more face-to-face interaction, and it's in an environment in which communication can actually occur. So going back to a few things, there is no guarantee that they will be more intelligent, no guarantee they will be able to understand our language. Let's be honest, we've all seen, you know, Close Encounters. We can sit in front of a Casio board for 4 days and still not know shit. second of all, the idea, the Mayans, I think was what you were trying to point out, not the Egyptians with the solstice calendar and so on and so forth. None of that has ever been proven. It's all hypothesized. You can't base reality on hypothesis. I feel like the Yoda argument actually trumps with the interaction with him as a ghost, so I think we can drop that. And we live our lives and everything we do based on what might be after. The choices we make, the morals we have, we live our lives based on what happens after. And they are not all in purgatory. Plenty of things go away and do come back with new ideas. We cannot base our ideas on definite possibilities. I don't know what the hell that means anyway. And we have to base it on facts. We know we've interacted with them. They aren't going to take over our world. What the hell are ghosts going to do? We need some holy water and maybe a crucifix to calm them down. Aliens could eat us, probe us, blow up the planet. Therefore, we would be able to have a conversation with the ghost more likely than an alien. Therefore, a conversation would lead to more learning, therefore knowledge and understanding of the life in which we live. So, any other random things I think are here is we do have more interaction. Ghosts are hypothesized, and more often ghosts are more peaceful than aliens, which tend to be a little bit more assertive and aggressive.
I don't always use protection.
I'm a clown.
So what does that mean exactly?
We're using my iPad on the toilet. You're breaking up with me because you're pitchy?
Those are legitimate scientific questions.
You really can't rise to the top until you hit rock bottom.
Is it really that bad? It's like Bigfoot on his period bed.
Sit.
You really are a horrible manager.
You're a horrible manager.
I can't believe Drake is here.
He isn't.
Hey, is there a guest house?
Well, duh.
There's a mandatory tip.
What?
Nobody should have to watch that. But everybody will because I've already YouTubed it.
Joe, my argument is juvenile. All I have to say to that is, nanny nanny boo boo, stick your head in doo doo.
Nailed it.
Well,
Joe, I just want to say, if you're going to bring up ancient aliens, that this is like the guy you're talking about right here.
no,
Everybody realizes that Yoda is smarter than Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Like
He
that.
still has some questions. He has some questions about the afterlife, so therefore he is not necessarily something that knows more than Obi-Wan.
If he's so smart, why does he live in a mud hut?
Bring it back. He does live in a mud hut. Bring it back to what we know, right? We would not feel comfortable enough to even have a 10-minute conversation. We couldn't even have a conversation. We'd be freaking afraid they'd be like touching us where our bathing suit covers with some crazy probe.
Seems like Jill had a really bad experience with an alien. This is
it
clouding
sounds
her
like it,
judgment.
yeah.
No, I've just had a really good experience with a ghost. That's all I'm saying.
There you go.
Oh, yeah?
And also
You could
suggesting
add that
that,
to your book, Matt. Add that
suggesting that ghosts exist only in purgatory and not the afterlife is really assuming a lot about my belief system.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
That is not part of this debate.
And you know what? I'd like to take a time out. Yoda was a freaking puppet, not even a real being.
Oh, are we debating whether
We're going to argue that. Okay.
Are we debating whether or not Star Wars is a documentary about ghosts and aliens or not? This is an argument that we're making now.
Well, they have to agree they both exist in order to debate.
You see what I mean about this team? Like, I didn't make the argument that Ghostbusters is a documentary.
I did use it as an example.
You should have.
You should have.
No,
I didn't say that Ghostbusters is a documentary.
Chewie, where's my razor?
Oh my god.
I didn't think that Slimer was that effective of a ghost.
Exactly. Not that interesting.
Yeah.
No, I just need to point out that.
Go ahead.
I just need to point out that as far as aliens go, I mean, if Will Smith can kick the shit out of them, really, you want to talk to that?
Well, but some of them we learned from, even in that movie. We learned from them.
What did you learn?
Thank you, Danny.
The universe can be condensed into the size of a marble. We learned that.
Aliens have to travel in time to get to us. That's how space-time works. Again, Neil deGrasse Tyson said it. Listen to the sound of his voice. It's real.
Hey, ghosts are dead. They have all the time in the world.
The sound of Neil deGrasse Tyson's voice in Cosmos that ripped off everything that Carl Sagan said 30 years
Let's
ago.
just bring it back around to that ghosts can only tell us about the afterlife. Only about the afterlife. We're talking about life.
In order to learn something, we have to have a conversation. So the being in which we would most likely have a conversation with and learn something with would be a being we have something in common with. We have something in common with ghosts. We have a shared experience. Therefore, we'd be able to learn more from that shared experience. There'd be so much uncertainty in a conversation with an alien. We'll be able to get past all that cognitive dissonance, the frustration between not knowing what we would learn or not, and even maybe not even comprehending it. It could be so complex. There's a higher likelihood to learn more from a ghost than an alien, and we base that on what we know to be true and our experiences thus far, not hypotheticals, not what aliens could, would, should, or may do.
If the afterlife is so interesting, if there is so much we can learn from the afterlife, then why is it that the ghosts don't want to just hang out there? They're just constantly coming back and having to tell us all of these things we have to learn, and all it really ends up being is just, hey, you should be scared of me. I don't understand why aliens can't also have learned English if they're so technologically advanced that they can travel through space and time to get to us. I don't see why this argument has to mean that because ghosts existed before, that it makes them inherently better. I remain unconvinced.
I kind of want to ask both teams, you know, the same thing. I want to ask them, what would you talk about in this 10-minute conversation with your space alien or your ghost? What would you say to them? I want to ask Dani and Jill. What would you talk about?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would definitely ask what life is like on their planet or wherever they live, and what their day-to-day life is like. And I know that Jill talked about how we might not understand their language, but I believe that if both sides are willing to communicate, which if we're having a 10-minute conversation with an alien, then that kind of implies that both sides are willing to communicate. If both sides are willing to communicate, then we would figure out some way to communicate. I mean, people that speak different languages on Earth can communicate, you know, through, you know, hand gestures or whatever. We would figure it out, and I would ask them what their day-to-day life is like, because that would enable us a better understanding of our world, and like somebody else lives like this, we live like this, and it'd just be very interesting to talk about that.
Okay. And Jill, what do you think? What would you talk to a ghost about?
Okay, so the time it would take to figure out whether or not we could have that conversation, and whether you use hand gestures or finger puppets or we use charades to communicate might take the 10 minutes. The questions I would ask would be, is heaven worth it? Is reincarnation an opportunity? Is hell really that hot? What really happened with Jesus? You know, those types of questions. I think, you know, really who's in charge? And is God as hot as everyone says? I would definitely want to know the answer to that question. But I would ask questions having to do with what we as humans conceptualize as the afterlife. And is it kind of like what we think? I think that would make decisions on how we would interact with each other. It would change our religious perspectives, and it would change how each of us live. Understanding an alien's daily life isn't going to have application in my life. So to better understand life, I would have a conversation with someone that has a similarity to the life in which I live.
All right, I have a question for each team. I'll start with one for the green team, for Jill. I would say, if you were to assume that the alien is peaceful and we're able to speak the same language, what would your argument be against it still?
Okay, so taking out the ability to hypothesize whether or not we could communicate, what arguments would I still include?
Assuming that we could talk with them, assuming that they're peaceful.
Right.
Why is it still better to talk with a ghost?
Why is it still better? Because we have a common experience. When you talk to someone that has a common experience that you have, whether it's somebody that's been through the same experience of a traumatic issue, or they've had the same kind of success or they've been to the same country. You have a shared experience, and so there's a depth of knowledge that you gain. When you talk to someone that has no frame of reference to the way in which you live or no frame of reference to that same common experience, it takes a longer period of time, more than 10 minutes, to reach that common ground, to reduce uncertainty, to have effective communication. So when we've got the 10-minute time frame, which we have to stick to, we can't say that aliens can expand time. That's not part of our argument here. That 10 minutes, we would benefit more from having a conversation with someone with similarities. So an alien having very few similarities with them, I do not think in that 10-minute time frame we would learn as much about life.
And then I have one more question for Joe. What do you say to the argument that even aliens would want to know, what happens after they die?
Well, aside from the fact that we can't just automatically assume that they would think and act and behave and believe exactly like we would, which is interesting in its own right, I would kind of want to know more about how they act. I would say that the mere existence of aliens fundamentally would call into question the basic premise of the afterlife. That all of humanity, I would argue, is based on the idea that humans are alone in the universe. And ghosts, no matter how much you can learn from them, do not change that fundamental aspect of humanity, and aliens do. And I don't understand why we've been allowed to fiat all of these existences of ghosts. Just we assume that they're all true, and then we can make up and speculate anything we want about aliens as if they'll be so much different than us. I don't think they would be necessarily that different from us in that way. They might have those questions too, but the whole point is we would learn so much more about that because all of humanity automatically is different the moment you make contact with someone who does not come from this solar system.
That means this is the end of our first ever battle. Thank you to all of our players for joining us.
Yoda became more powerful as a ghost.
That's so true! Fuck, that's so true!
My wife is gone.
Damn it!
As I mentioned before, there are 8 teams competing. Only one will end up champions. So I hope you continue to watch us over here at Battle Superfluous. Have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.